So we got our first ever pro game of CORRODE, and it wasn't that great. And that's somewhat to be expected. These teams haven't had much time, but this did feel a bit of a ranked game. Well, there was a lot of things that I didn't like about that, and we're going to talk about some of these things. Let's start with the comps. And I don't like this comp. To start off with, couple reasons I don't like this comp. One is, if you don't play these two with a Yoru, like if you're playing Omen and Astra together and your duelist isn't a Yoru, I just think, what are you doing? Because I could understand if this was a Yoru, like going, okay, we want to do some very specific things with Yoru and we need to be able to place the smokes itself to allow our Yoru to TP into it, all that kind of stuff. But if not, just play Viper. So yeah, don't really like that. And also just kind of generally the idea, particularly when a map is new, you don't really know what's going on. Like, just simplify the map, just play a Sentinel. And then from EDG as well, you know, their comp maybe makes a little bit more sense. You know, it doesn't look too bad, but again, on a map where everyone agrees that, you know, spamming Odins together, we're really playing a no recon initiator here. It's again like Gecko KO, they have synergy, right? Can they play well with Neon? Yes, right? Like, it does make sense, those as a trio, but at the same time, like, you know, Fade and Silver are going to be really good on this map. Well, let's kick it off here with round number 3, and in this one, what you are going to see from EDG, as you can see just here, is a pretty basic, just 4-1 straight B hit, and well, this time is the 3rd time that they do it in a row, and it's not going to go so great.
体坛得尽量少掉点枪。
没错，刚刚是补了一把狂徒，3把长枪其实在正面还是够用的。
有火力。EDG 还是选择了 B 点的一波。
因为没有哨位啊，所以其实经典的时候 EDG 没有太多顾忌。
还是老一套，但是后续在有枪械的过程当中。
So of course, when the wingman dies on site there, that's pretty much the end of the round right there, and we don't really need to play too much else of this round, but we can talk about some of the things that EDG do in terms of their actual exec initially, and then kind of some of the mistakes that they make as well here, right? So you can see that they come in, you know, they take B main pretty much for free. Tech here did go with this kind of, you know, pretty passive setup a lot. They do have 2 players here already on B, and then Neon is going to be able to rotate in. As we see, they were playing a pretty passive A site over in this round. But you see here, what we're going to do is an EDG were doing this, you know, fairly often when they were coming towards B, is going for this kind of deep wingman plant, right? So like from B main, being able to get the wingman to get the plant, the spike just there. They're going to go for this KO knife, which is a pretty good KO knife, right? Like, it's going to suppress both these players. Fortunately for them, this mosh pit is going to come out just in time before they can actually get there. But the problem that they're going to have, and you can kind of see it happening on the map just now, is that Smoggy is going to smoke, and he's going to put 1 smoke just here, and then he's going to smoke Heaven. And the problem with that is that it's the wrong way around, right? So little tip for you as you're coming in here towards this B site in general is that you want to be smoking off Heaven first, right? Because the Heaven angle, I mean, we see it here obviously from Coco, but you can imagine, like, if Coco is, you know, even further out here, out towards Heaven, that he can just see you as you come in, right? People who are back there, you know, towards where this first smoke is going out, people who are like back here, you know, they aren't in the round as soon as these guys are, right? These guys are in the round, like, literally, if you just peek your head out of any of the smoke, you're in the round, right? And also, they're on an elevation. It's going to be hard to hit them. So you have to smoke this first, right? If Smoggy did smoke this first, and this is smoked off, this round still has a chance, right? It still has a chance, because as Kang is sliding down there, you know, he potentially can see this fight, he can take this fight, and maybe win this fight. Right, but this one, he has just a lot less chance against, and we end up with, obviously, both these players dying here, because this is obviously just a pretty tough situation to be in, and you essentially get pincered from the 2 different directions. And that's another thing, of course, that it's much easier to flood out of this smoke than it is, you know, drop from Heaven, right? People are going to be less confident in terms of, like, you know, just jumping out than they are just running through. Right, because obviously they're not going to be accurate for a while. So tip there is, if you are coming towards the speed site, definitely smoke Heaven first. Okay, let's come into the very next round. So this is the first full gun round for both teams, and in this one, we're actually going to see EDG go for quite an ambitious A hit.
Nobody 以及球球2人已经有终极技能了，
直接鲨鱼开路，清 A 区 ，A 区只要进了那个屋子里面啊，
哎，这个混
烟直接混掉了一个 smoky， 而且张俊成也倒了。 但房子里面康康是收掉了 Luke， 康康还能再收吗？收了2个，后续还在补枪 ，1 by 1的互换，换成了一个球球1v2，抛了个神经狙击出来，确定对方2个人的位置。但是这个犄角之势已经形成。
So the reason I call this an ambitious A hit is because they're trying to hit this A site with speed. But that's the thing, this A site is very big, right? There is a lot to clear as well. So even though they are doing it with a Gecko ult, and that can clear a lot of these kind of areas towards elbow here, right? So that's good for them. It's still ambitious because whilst Kang is able to get there, right, with his Neon Wall, whilst he's able to get out of here and, follow the Gecko ult in and do all this, right, which is great, whilst it works for him, the rest of the team just isn't there, right? They just don't have the speed to be able to do this, right? And this, again, is another reason why some sort of Viper double controller here just feels somewhat necessary, right? Because, again, we're going for these, like, deep, what I would call ambitious smokes. Right, this is an ambitious smoke to think you're going to take this much space with an ult that's going this way. And these guys don't have time to cross this Neon Wall, right? So this is why I personally just like, some sort of Viper setup over here, allowing us to potentially, walk in here, right? And make this a lot shorter and make the area that we need to take kind of, slowly marching up rather than just trying to take it all in one go. Because guess what? Our KO there is dying out in the open, right? This, what? And that's the thing, like, this smoke is so deep that, again, it's just too ambitious. And even though Kang is able to wrap around and get a couple kills, it's kind of too late. Too many people have kind of already died to make that worth it. And Tech end up trading and winning the round. Okay, now let's skip ahead on to round number 11. And this is one of those rounds where you can kind of tell EDG, we just don't know what we're doing, right? We're just doing whatever, basically, because you'll see here, how often do you see on maps that people know how to play that everyone comes to mid? Does that look like something that you commonly see on a lot of maps? It's not to me. It's not generally how it works for me. But that's what they decide to do. They then decide to, run through with a Neon Stun and Omen Flash. They end up going 1-for-1, right? But now look at what they've done to the map. Instead of it being like a 1-3-1 and our Omen is TP'd here and flash this with a Neon Stun, and now can create some pressure in A main, we're just all here mid. Like, it's just obviously not ideal. And so they end up just kind of getting, bogged down, stuck, not knowing which way to go. And eventually they're going to pivot to come for, I would call this a B split, but it's not a B split. It's just a all come through this way towards B, right? And yes, they do, kind of pick the correct side. And I think you can also see here that in these sort of rounds, right, like, there may be some potential to come and, try this and try a 1v1 in these areas if you want to, because defenders might often end up, in these kind of spots, kind of spread out. It is quite big back here, right? This is quite a big space in general. So there might be some options there for you as the attackers if you, are in like a 3v4 or something like that to potentially go for those kind of rounds. But you'll see now what they're going to do is they're going to essentially just walk around the map. But they're going to start planting with Wingman here. Just here. The problem is, again, look at their post plant and the post plant they're going to end up in. It just makes no sense.
哎，跳了一下，是不是被听到了？现在弹球，想去抓，想去抓。
我滴下来了。
这个控枪，张俊成还是控得非常棒的。后续卢克一旦倒地的话，那回防对于体坛是个非常大的难题啊。
现在就看阿博了，他藏了非常久，能不能给回防带来一定的收益？
你看一下 EDG 现在这个站位不给机会啊，好像。
不好抓。
听到低包，
但有开宝。
开宝加穿射，
但位置好像有点被这个烟给限制住了。只能打闪硬往外出吗？没闪了。
重力井应该是行星脉冲拉了一下，后续换人换下来。这特异浩东竟然是打赢了。
So yeah, a bit of a messy post plant here, as you can expect against double controller, where we've all ended up in a very bizarre position in general. And also one thing I should note is that not a single player bought an Odin during this entire map, which again doesn't feel like that will probably be the case going forward, at least not what I suspect will be the case going forward. But yeah, obviously again, this whole idea of we're just gonna jump through. I mean, they are in a 4v3. They actually, make it work decently well with Smoggy there, but ultimately they end up losing. So yeah, don't basically all 5 go into mid. Okay, now let's skip ahead to round number 13, which I would say is the one example of a team like having a good idea and executing it pretty well.
有非常非常多的技巧性投掷，因为他全都是那种露天的房檐上。
对，他的整个墙体都比较矮，有很多可以去投掷的点位。看一下 Nobody 的这个开宝应该是断对面退路的。
开宝直接丢，再给一个阵，哇 ！EDG 这一手套餐。 把 BY 所有人都接住了。
This is pretty nice here from EDG, right? They have the 4 stack here over towards B. They actually did this quite a bit on the defensive side. They wait for that Prowler to give them contact, and out they go. Right, knife, flash, stun, Gecko Mosh, right? Like, all out there, and they managed to get the kill. Unfortunately for them, again, you would think, like, how is this ever happening when this is our round plan, right? Like, just transfer any skills from any other map into this, and it works. For some reason, my Cypher, who is completely alone, decides now that we're running this trap play is a good chance to just peek out. And he dies, right? So even though he thinks he's probably coming up against multiple people, which is likely because they're pushing back out of B main, you know, maybe he thinks that he's going to be the one to win the round there. Instead, he ends up dying and giving them a chance. But ultimately, EDG will manage to, you know, come out of this on top. They deal with this pretty well, as you'll see here from Kang in a second. Does well in terms of finding where these players are and dealing with them in a very good manner.
得先走啊，这个位置走不掉了，
退不掉，只能原地加枪了。
那现在变成了一个4v2，并且 Nobody 是有丢丢的，回旋跳，康康先看到了对方的 Coco， 这位置 Coco 选择主动出击吗？ 身后随时来人，给了一个闪存过载，这个位置左右都有人 ，Nobody 只能配合自己的队友。
And then finally, let's come to round number 18, which is perhaps the one round that Tech had kind of a cool idea on their attack side, but they didn't really use it very well.
前面 EDG 每回合都在做前顶。
对，信息差现在显得尤为的重要。1分为2，宇宙飞的连接直接连接到了 A 区的点后。
哎，离魂落在了旁边。
但烟里全都是 EDG 的选手，这个时候你要强行慧眼，其实很危险。怎么去选择啊？招鲨鱼吗？有丢丢，哎，后铲，但卢克依然还是倒地。
Okay, so the idea here from Tech actually is kind of cool. This Astral ult, I think, in general is pretty cool, right? It gives you obviously this pocket that we see the Omen ult come into. But it also has, you know, other pockets, right? Like it has this potentially as well if you wanted to come into there also. So kind of an interesting idea with this Astral in general. You see that, you know, they come in with the Neon Wall, the Fade Horn, all of that. They try and get in here. The problem is that for some reason, like, you know, we ult into this, right? So they don't know that we're back here yet. But then for some reason, like, you know, this would be a good chance to, like, pause, right? And let Howdong do that. Or Howdong just comes out. But instead he just, like, stays here and waits for his team to get there. So its kind of whole sense of timing is gone. Right, and now someone could have just walked in there anyway. So a bit strange. Then nobody decides to ult from this position. Like, I don't know what he's doing either. Then this happens. I don't know what that is. Right, all sorts of crazy. Whilst that's going on, we've got a KO who just literally was just staring at this wall this whole time. Right, just like actually AFK staring at a wall. I mean, if I come back a second, you can see like just looking at a wall, just staring at a wall. Die. Yeah, so not ideal, and Tech ultimately do end up closing out this round, but they would eventually lose. And so, as I said, CORRODE, I think, didn't learn too much from this map, if I'm being honest. It looked like two teams who I don't think have a great read on the map, didn't look that practiced on the map. It was kind of scrappy, it was kind of messy, and EDG just basically out-aimed Tech.